Hi there, welcome to Salvos Kids in the Kitchen. I'm Cathryn and this is Gracie. How old are you, Gracie?
7.
7. Have you helped cook before?
Yes.
Yes? What kind of things have you cooked?
Some cakes and some treats.
Some treats. What kind of treats? Like dessert?
Yeah.
They're good, aren't they? Sweet things. You know what? Salvos Kids in the Kitchen is about teaching kids just like you how to cook simple meals for themselves, for you and for your family. And so today we're going to cook together. But before we cook, we need to do some things to get ready to cook. And there's 4 things that I think we need to do. Do you think you might know any of those 4 things?
Wash your hands.
Wash your hands, that's a great start.
Put on an apron.
Yep, put on an apron. And what does an apron do?
It helps you from getting food on your clothing.
Yes, yeah.
Tie up your hair.
Yeah. Why do you think we should tie up our long hair?
So it doesn't go in the food.
Yes, so our hair doesn't end up in the food, and so that we can see what we're doing as well, can't we? With our hair isn't all in our face. And there's one more thing. We need to protect our feet as well, don't we? And the best way that we can do that is by putting some shoes that cover our feet. So not thongs or sandals or not bare feet. If we put joggers or our school shoes back on, that will help protect our feet. If anything splashes on it or if we drop a knife accidentally, then it will help to stop injuries happening. So there are 4 things that we can do, and we've got a special rhyme that we use so that we can remember that. Tie your hair up nice and neat, covered shoes upon your feet, an apron keeps clothes clean and smart, wash your hands before you start. One of the easiest ways for us to learn how to cook is to follow a recipe. Recipe cards like the ones we're using today are available by emailing kidsinthekitchen@salvationarmy.org.au. So we're going to start by getting our equipment out, and the equipment is just listed on the recipe card if you want to help me and if you're able to read what we need.
Saucepans.
Yep, so we've got 2 saucepans here. So we're going to use 1 for the macaroni and we're going to use 1 for the cheese sauce. What's the next thing on the list?
Measuring cups and spoons.
So I've got some measuring cups here and some measuring spoons.
Wooden spoon.
A wooden spoon.
Strainer.
And a strainer, and here's our strainer, and we'll need that a little bit later once our pasta is all cooked. So we've got our equipment, we're just going to move it over to the side here while we find our ingredients that we need. And on the ingredients list,
250 grams pasta.
so today we're going to be using macaroni because we're making macaroni cheese together. We have a packet of macaroni, but it says that it's 500 grams. So we only need to use half a packet. And what else do we need?
Water.
Water, and we're going to use the water, and we'll fill the saucepan up a little bit later to cook the macaroni, to cook the pasta in. But there's some other things that we need for the cheese sauce as well.
3 tablespoons of butter.
We've got the butter ready here. They're in the bowl. The next ingredient says
3 tablespoons of plain flour.
yep, and that's plain flour. You can get different kinds of flour, but we need to look for the one that says plain flour.
2 cups of milk.
And we'll measure that out when we get to making our sauce. And there's one more thing that we need. If we're going to make cheese sauce, we need
1.5 cups of grated cheese.
1.5 cups of grated cheese, and we're going to measure that out as well when we get to making the cheese sauce. So our recipe card says here, put everything you need out on the bench or table, and we've done that. We've got our equipment out, we've got our ingredients out. The first instruction says fill 1 saucepan about 3/4 full with water. So that's about nearly to the top, isn't it? 3/4. So it's a little bit more than half and a little bit less than all the way to the top. And you know, if we use warm or hot water, then it's going to heat up quicker because we want the water to come to the boil. So we want it to be bubbling before we put the pasta in. The next instruction says heat on high until water is boiling. And the water's boiling when it's got bubbles coming up from the bottom and popping at the top. So we're going to put that on high. And on this dial, there's a 0 and then there's lots of numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Which one's the highest number?
5.
5. So we're going to put it on 5 and that means it's on high. And so we're going to wait for that to boil. We're going to put the lid on it because the heat will stay inside the saucepan and it will keep bubbling and keep boiling quicker. We're also going to turn the handle away from us so that we don't knock it. Because if it's facing out this way and I accidentally reach over here to get something, I could knock it and boiling water would go everywhere. So we're going to turn the handle around so that we can't knock it and it's much, much safer. So once the water is boiling, we're going to add the pasta. We've measured out half a packet of pasta, so we've got the 250 grams of pasta. I'm going to take the lid off the saucepan and Grace is going to pour the pasta in slowly so that it doesn't splash out because it's boiling. It's really, really hot. That's it. That's it. Keep pouring, keep pouring, keep pouring. There we go. So we're going to put the lid back onto the pasta so that we keep the heat in there again. And in about 12 or 15 minutes, that should be ready. And so while we're waiting for that to cook, we're going to move on to making the cheese sauce. And it says in another saucepan, what are we going to do?
Melt butter.
We're going to melt the butter. And we have 3 tablespoons of butter, and we're going to get our other saucepan and we're going to put it onto this one and we're going to turn it on to about halfway, which is about number 3. So we're going to put the butter in and we're going to wait for it to melt. And just use your spoon to move it around so it doesn't stay on the one spot. That's it. And so it's melted when it's like water, it's runny. I'm just giving the pasta a bit of a stir because sometimes it can clump together a bit, and so that we don't get clumps in it, just give it a bit of a stir and break it up a little bit if it has stuck together. Our next instruction says add the flour, and so we need 3 tablespoons of flour. That's this one. If you just leave that sitting in there while you add this, level it off a bit. Yep, like that, that's good. 1, 2, 3. And so if you want to mix that flour into the butter, the melted butter, and we want it to form a paste. It might look a bit like Play-Doh looks by the time it's ready. So if you stir that into it so you can't see any of the white of the flour, we're going to form a paste. Our instructions say to cook for 1 minute over medium heat, and then we need to gradually add the milk. And so I'm going to measure out 2 cups of milk, and I'll gradually add that while you keep stirring. And that's one of the good things about cooking together, is different people can do different jobs. Keep stirring. I'm going to gradually add this. And Grace, can you see how that is starting to go thicker? And that's because of the flour in it. The flour will thicken the mixture. We've added the milk. We're going to keep stirring until the mixture is smooth. Then we're going to wait until it boils, but we need to keep stirring it so that it doesn't catch on the bottom, because if it catches on the bottom, then we may end up with burnt bits through it, and we don't want that in our cheese sauce. So we're going to just wait until it starts to bubble. So once we've got the cheese sauce to the boil, we're going to reduce the heat, so that means we turn it down, and we're going to simmer it for 2 minutes. And to simmer means to just bubble, so it still looks like it's boiling, but it's only just bubbling and the bubbles are popping on the surface. So once it's simmered for 2 minutes, we turn it off. The recipe does say remove from the heat, but we're just going to leave it sitting there because there's no heat coming from there anymore. It's still a little bit warm, but we're going to add the cheese. And we're going to make it till it's nice and smooth, and that means that all the cheese will be melted into our sauce. I can't see any cheese left in there, so it must be all melted. Our pasta's cooked and it's ready to be drained. It says when pasta is soft but firm in the middle, it's ready. We now need to drain the pasta, and so we're going to do that over in the sink because we're going to get rid of all the water. We're going to tip it in, and so the water will run through the strainer and the pasta will be left nice and drained. So if you're not able to do that yourself, if you're not able to lift the saucepan, then ask an adult to help you, because it is boiling water, so it's very, very hot and it can be quite heavy. Once you've tipped the pasta from the saucepan into the strainer, just give the strainer a bit of a shake to get rid of the excess water, and then I'm going to put the strainer into the top of the saucepan just so that it doesn't drip water when I take it over. Our last instruction on our recipe card says add pasta to cheese sauce and stir through. So I'll add the pasta to the cheese sauce and you can stir it through, and then we'll be ready to put it onto our plates. There you go, give it a big stir so that it's all covered in the cheese sauce. Now that we've stirred the pasta into the cheese sauce, we're ready to put it onto our plates. And this is for 4 people, so there's lots and lots in there. So we're just going to serve up enough for you and I, and then we'll leave some in the saucepan for later, or if we want seconds. And because we've got some extra cheese left over, we're just going to sprinkle a little bit of cheese on top, like that. Do you want to try some?
Yes.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yum.
Yummy. And we want kids like you to be able to cook with a little bit of help from an adult and make yummy meals for their families. Today when we made macaroni cheese, we used macaroni, but there's lots of different pastas that we could have used. When you're making cheese sauce, it's probably best to use a smaller pasta. There's shells, there's spirals, but there's other pastas that are used for different things. We have spaghetti. This is angel hair pasta, that's a thin spaghetti. This one that looks a little bit like rice is called risotto, and it's good for use in soups. And of course there's the lasagna sheets and some fettuccine. But they're all known as pasta. As people, we're all different as well. We have things that make us different, but we also have things that make us the same. But it's those differences that make us special. And God's created us to be different to anybody else. He's created us to do something special. He's created us to do something that other people may not be able to do. And in the Bible, we read some words about us being made. And in Psalm 139, it says this, "You," and the psalmist is talking to God, saying, "You are the one who put me together, and I praise you because of the wonderful way you created me. Everything you do is marvelous." And so we praise God for the wonderful way that He's created us. He's created us to be special. He's created us to be different from anyone else. And He's created us for a purpose. Thanks for your help today, Gracie, and thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.